Good evening, everybody. My name's Fiona McPherson, and I'll be hosting this evening's event. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the Open University to our webinar, where we will be sharing with you the secrets of how to accelerate your career within your organisation. Just before you start, I'd like to just take you through the screens and help you familiarise yourself with WebEx if you haven't used it before. As you can see, the main part of the screen displays any content, and as you can see now, we've got a PowerPoint presentation up there at the moment. And this is where we share any content such as web browser content, any videos, etc. So you'll see that in the main part of the screen. At the top of your screen, you'll see an audio broadcast box, and this is where you can adjust the volume. So obviously you just click the cursor left or right, and you can actually change the volume on there. On the right-hand side of your screen, and this is very much dependent on whether you're using an Apple or Windows-based PC, but you'll see on the right-hand side that there are two tabs. You have the Participant tab and the Question and Answer tab, the Q&A tab. You'll be using these during the webinar, so we're just going to have a quick practice just so you can actually see how they work. If you can actually select the participant panel, if it's not already showing, then go down to the bottom and first of all click on the show hand icon. You'll see a little hand. And if you can just click on there, great. Great, so you're all actually doing that. So that's how you would actually, occasionally we'll ask for a show of hands. I think Antoinette's not going to be doing that today, but if we ask a question at any point that just requires a yes or no answer, then you can actually just put your hand up. So that's great. Glad you can all use that. Okay. Now, if you can click on the tick icon, I want you to answer the following question with either a yes or no answer. So if you can just select yes or no to the question, are you on LinkedIn? That's great. Lovely. So I can see that a few of you are on there, so that's great. So that's how you would actually participate in any yes or no questions as well. Okay, now we're going to look at the Q&A panel. We're going to use this towards the end of the webinar. We've actually allowed 20 minutes for the question and answer session at the end, where you'll have the opportunity to ask Antoinette any questions. To send a question, all you need to do is select Host from the Ask drop-down menu, type in your question, and click on Send, and we will answer as many questions as we can. So just for a quick practice, if you can actually just answer a quick question for me. If you want to go and select Host from the Ask menu, and then just type in there whereabouts you are geographically today, and just click on Send, just so that I can see. Okay, Michelle's in South Yorkshire. Anand is in Grenoble. Hello. Rob's in Cheshire. Angela's in Leighton Buzzard. Darren's in Southampton. And Louise is in Hampshire. So there's a few. So that's great. So that's how easy it is. So if you do have a question, if you can just actually send through your question like that to the host, which is myself, and then at the end, obviously, I can start reading those out and Antoinette can actually answer. At the end of this evening's webinar, we have a feedback form which will pop up once we've finished. And I would ask if you could just quickly go through and fill that out and just let us know how you felt the event went, as well as there's a selection of topics we're considering for future events. So if you could actually just select the ones that you would be interested in, this obviously helps us plan any future events that are coming up. Okay, now I'd like to introduce you to our presenter, Antoinette Oglethorpe. Antoinette is a leadership and career coach who specialises in helping business leaders and professionals take control of their careers and help them realise their ambitions. She's been helping business leaders develop leadership skills and manage their careers for over 20 years. In that time, she's worked with some of the world's leading multinational organisations, which include well-known names such as Procter & Gamble and Accenture, as well as a number of public sector organisations such as the NHS. She's worked across a range of sectors, including FMCG, franchising, professional services, insurance technology, higher education, and the health service. So, as you can guess, she's got a wealth of knowledge, which I'm sure she's going to pass on to you today. So it gives me great pleasure to pass you over to Antoinette, if you just bear with me a second, and I look forward to receiving your questions towards the end of the presentation.
Right, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Fiona, for that introduction. As Fiona said, I sometimes describe myself as having made a career out of managing my career. And so this evening, I'm hoping to share with you some of the things that I've learned and some of the things that I help my clients with. But just to start off, to get us thinking about why this is important, we're going to run a short poll I'm going to ask Fiona to help me with. I'd like you to think about how many hours you think an average person spends working in their lifetime. So I think we're going to put up a list of options. So you've got the options there of 70,000 hours, 50,000 hours, 30,000 hours, or 10,000 hours. So just going to give you a few seconds to think about what you think the answer is and answer the poll. And when everyone's had a chance to answer, I think Fiona's going to put the results up for us. So it looks like we have the majority of people feel it's 50,000. Some people, obviously, maths is not their preferred subject, and we had a few people saying 70,000. It's actually 70,000. The average person, and this isn't the workaholics amongst us, this is the average person working an 8-hour day and a 5-day week, works 70,000 hours in their lifetime, which is an awful lot. And that is one of the reasons why you need to take control of your career. It's one of the reasons why it's important. Because at the end of the day, we spend too long at work to be that unhappy. So it's and in a week we spend about 75% of our energy focused on work. If you think about how much time you spend preparing for work, getting to work, talking about work, worrying about work, we spend an awful lot of time focused on that. So it makes sense to devote our time and energy to actively working on it and making it as satisfying as possible. Now, a lot of people would say, well, that's all very well, but you can't actually plan your career. And we live in very uncertain times, and we live in a world where change is happening all the time. So it is true that careers are much less predictable and much more emergent than they used to be. But you can influence how your career evolves. And change actually creates opportunities that could never have been anticipated. So you may not have a structured career path that you can choose from, and all sorts of eventualities may befall you that you didn't anticipate. But to actually get the most out of your current role and to be open to creating and identifying opportunities, you do need to have some kind of vision and some kind of forward planning. Because the third reason you need to take control of your career is that no one else is going to manage your career for you. It's been a long time now since companies were able to provide hire-to-retire job security, and now it falls to the individual to manage their career, decide where they want to go, how they're going to get there, and whether their organisation or another organisation would be the best place to get that experience. Now, that obviously doesn't mean you won't need the support of others, because you will need the support of your boss, your colleagues, and HR, but it does mean that it's up to you to determine the support you need and then go about getting it. Because the other thing that is focused on the individual is career success. It means very different things to different people. Some people, it's about finding a way to continue learning. For others, it's about achieving recognition. For some, it's going to be about status and promotion and salary. And for some, it's going to be about moving into a job that's more interesting and fulfilling. So being in control of your career means different things to different people, and you need to decide what it means to you. And finally, managing your career is not all about changing organisations. A lot of people only really start thinking about managing their career if they're unhappy at work, or if they're dissatisfied with a promotion result, or their salary review, or their performance appraisal. And it's not all about that. Managing your career is something that you should be doing on a day-in, day-out basis. It's about adopting a strategic approach to developing your career in a certain direction, and that will allow you to identify and create opportunities. Those opportunities are just as likely to exist within your current organisation as in a different one. And that's why career management doesn't stop once you get a job. In fact, getting the job is just the start of managing your career. So, we're going to cover a number of things in this session today. It goes without saying that the number one thing you need to do to manage your career within an organisation is to work hard and do a really good job and exceed expectations wherever possible. But that in itself is not enough to actually take control of your career and achieve your aspirations. There's two broad areas you need to think about. One is focusing on yourself and what you want from your career. And the second is about influencing others in your organisation to shape your career the way you'd like it. So in this session, we're going to look at 10 strategies you can use to accelerate your career, which don't necessarily mean leaving your organisation. We're going to look at a focus on you, and we're going to look at the importance of being clear on what's important to you in terms of your career, how you can develop a picture of future success, how you can focus on the steps you can take in the short term, recognize the progress you've already made in your career, and continually develop the knowledge, skills, and resources. And then we're going to look at the focus you need to place on your organisation, how you need to do your homework into roles or developments that you're interested in, how to identify the key people you need to influence, how to raise your profile in your organisation by making the best and most visible impact you can, how you can find mentors and sponsors to support you, and how you need to build your network and develop relationships. So, the first thing is about being clear on what's important to you in terms of your career. And this really involves developing a high level of self-awareness and self-insight. We can often be very focused on all the things that we're dissatisfied with in terms of our career, but a lot less clear on what that means in terms of what's important to us and why. So it's really important to put aside time to reflect on your career and to think about the decisions you've made to date. So, firstly, think about your proudest achievements to date. And by that, I mean your proudest. So not necessarily the achievements that everyone else thinks you should be proud of, but those achievements that you're really proud of. Because if you can isolate those, there's a lot that it will tell you about what skills you used, what your interests are, what kind of activities you enjoy most. And it might be that it's not just looking at the achievements within your work, but also the achievements outside of work. That can also tell you about the skills you've got and what you're interested in. It can also tell you about what your values are in relation to work, what kind of work environment you prefer, what kind of people you enjoy working with. So think about your favourite job, think about the things that you've done outside of work. What did you love most about it? And what does that tell you about what's important to you in terms of your career? Because you really need to get to the heart of who you are in terms of your skills, your preferences, your values, those activities you enjoy most, your interests, and your career drivers. So just by way of a simple activity, I recommend that you think back over the whole of your career to date, however long or short it might be, and make a list of all those things that you're particularly proud of, and see if there are any patterns or themes that you can identify in terms of activities you were carrying out, skills you used, people you were working with, or the environment in which they were based. And if you struggle with this, then actually completing some kind of self-assessment activities or psychometric tools or working with a coach can really help you develop your self-awareness and gain insight into what's important to you in relation to your career. The second thing you need to think about is, okay, if I know who I am and I know all those things that are important to me, actually, what does success look like? If I'm successful in my career, what will that mean in terms of what I'm actually doing on a day-to-day basis? So one way to do that is to project yourself into the future and imagine that you're totally satisfied with your career. And ask yourself a number of questions that can help you develop that picture of success. So, suppose you could wave a magic wand and suddenly you're 2 years into the future and your career has progressed better than you could possibly have imagined. What would you be seeing around you that told you you had been incredibly successful in your career? What would you be doing on a day-to-day basis? Where would you be working? Who would you be working with? Who would you be working for? Who would be working for you? What problems would you be helping solve? What results would you be producing? What kind of feedback would you be receiving from others? What else would tell you that this was your future success and that actually your career progression had been exactly as you wanted it to be? And the real key to this exercise is making it as positive and as observable and as detailed as possible. So if for example, say, well, I would be happy, that's not very specific. What would be telling you that you were happy? What kind of activities would you be doing that were making you happy? What kind of location would you be working in that would be contributing to that? So you need to make it very tangible and practical in terms of those things that not only you could observe, but that other people could observe, that made this a real picture of success, really brings it to life. Because that vision will then allow you to set a direction for your career progression. We may never achieve perfection. Of course, life is changing all the time, and your picture of future success will change with it as well. So you'll need to review it regularly. But if you have that picture in your mind, it will give you something to aim towards. It will set the direction for your career progression. The next thing that I recommend is actually to recognize the progress that you've already made in your career. If you think about that direction, if you think about that picture of future success, the fact is that you will have made some progress already in that direction. Whatever stage you're at in your career, you're already some way on that journey, and you have at least some of the skills and resources that you'll need to make the progress that you wish to make. So it's worth recognizing the progress you've already made in your career and identifying those things that have helped you get where you are to date. Because if you can identify what's worked for you already, you can build on that in order to make further progress. So again, I recommend, if you've developed that picture of future success, think of a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is that picture and 1 is the complete opposite, where absolutely no element of your picture of future success exists. And think about where on that scale you are today. And wherever you are on that scale, think about actually what's in place. So rather than our usual way of using scales, which is to think about, well, what are all the reasons that I'm not at 10, I encourage you to think about what are all the things that actually put you as high on the scale as you are and not lower. So ask yourself the following questions. On a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is future success, where would you put things today? Then ask yourself, well, how come you're that high and not lower? And that doesn't matter whether it's 2, 3, 7 or 8. Wherever you are, how come you're that high and not lower? What's going well in terms of your current position? And ask yourself that question a number of times, so you're not just thinking about the things that come to the surface of your mind, but actually really probing beneath the surface. And to help you, you might actually want to get somebody else to ask you these questions. But the next question to think about is what's helped you get to where you are today. So if you're 4 on the scale, well, what's helped you get to that position? What have you done that has helped you make progress? What have other people done that's helped you make progress? And where on the scale would you like to be in 12 months' time? Actually, if you're just at 4 on the scale today, there's no point in worrying too much about getting to 10 in the short term. That's a little paralyzing. It's a bit like climbing a mountain and looking up and seeing the summit so far away that it almost demotivates you to try and make progress. So think about where on the scale you'd like to be in 12 months' time relative to where you are today. And what would that look like? What would be different if you were at that position on the scale rather than where you are right now? Again, trying to make it as detailed and specific as possible, so that you can focus on the steps that you can take in the short term. Because as we said before, life is changing all the time. It's impossible to develop a long-term career plan that's completely structured and predictable, but instead you can focus on those concrete things you can change, the specific skills you can acquire, and the particular tasks that you can complete in the next 6 to 12 months, which will take you in the direction that you want to go. So think about what would be different if you were just 1 point higher up that scale, and what would help you move towards that. Maybe there's something about your current role that perhaps you could do more of. Perhaps there are other opportunities that your current role could offer. Perhaps there are new projects that you could take on to develop your skills, gain new experiences, and demonstrate your capability. Most importantly, you need to think about what would help you move up the scale, and then actually proactively go out and seek those opportunities and ask for those kinds of experiences that would help you and would benefit you. Because you need to continually develop the knowledge, skills and resources you need. And those knowledge, skills and resources are going to be very dependent on where you want to get to. Once you have your picture of future success, then you can really identify what the knowledge, skills and resources are that you're going to need in order to make that picture a reality. So what knowledge gaps are there in relation to that? What skills and experiences do you need to develop? Once you've analysed that and identified it, then you can not only be clearer about the knowledge, skills and resources you already have, but you can identify those things that you need to develop and be more assertive about pursuing those formal and informal opportunities that will allow you to take the necessary training, meet the necessary people, and investigate opportunities that will help you develop in line with your career aspirations. So begin with the end in mind. Think about that picture of future success and really analyze that knowledge, skills, experience, and the relationships that you need to develop so that you can make the full benefit fully from the range of training and opportunities available to you. It will also allow you to actually evaluate different opportunities. So if you have the opportunity to get involved in 2 different projects, actually looking at the experience and skills they will allow you to develop and determining which of the projects will give you is more aligned with the picture of future success you're trying to realize will help you make the choice. So those are a number of things that you need to do focusing on yourself, both in terms of understanding who you are and what you want from a career and thinking about how you develop the knowledge, skills and experience that you're going to need. The second part of the equation is actually looking at how you influence the organisation and dovetail your aspirations with the business objectives that the organisation is trying to realise. And the first thing you need to do is to do your homework. There's no point thinking about your own strengths and aspirations without thinking about how those could align with the goals and the ambitions of your function, your organisation, or your industry. So, with your picture of future success in mind, think about your organisation's vision. Think about the goals that they're trying to achieve, the opportunities that they're trying to take advantage of, and the challenges that they're currently battling. And think about how could your picture of future success fit into your current organisation? Does the role you want already exist, at least in part, within the organisation? If not, how could it add most value to the organisation? How could it help the organisation achieve its vision, deliver its goals, or respond to the key trends in the industry? What do you need to demonstrate to be considered suitable for the type of role you want? Maybe there are other people that are carrying out that role. What skills or specialist knowledge did they demonstrate? How did they behave? How were they seen by the organisation? Track down those people who have made the kind of progress you want to make. Maybe you've decided that you want a particular kind of experience, or maybe you've decided you want to change the kind of role that you're doing and move into a different function. Talk to other people that have done it about the strategies that they used. Talk to them about the kind of role that they're doing. Because until you actually talk to someone that's doing the kind of job you think you're interested in, you won't really know what it's like on a day-to-day basis. So again, if you've got your picture of future success, that's almost like a benchmark that you can use. And then in doing your homework, you can evaluate how well the different opportunities within the organisation match up to that, and what skills and experience you need to develop in order to do that role and get that opportunity. So here are a number of things that you need to research: the skills, the experience, the relationships, the knowledge, the behaviours that you need to demonstrate, and thinking about who else has made that kind of progress. The next thing to think about is identifying the key people that you need to influence. Career management is driven by you as the individual. Only you can own your attitudes and aspirations towards your career. But unfortunately, it's not just about what you know and want. It's also about who knows and wants you. managing your career in an organisation is not something that you can do in isolation. Progressing towards that picture of future success means that you need to identify the people that can help you shape your role, and then you need to influence them in order to make that happen. At the very least, this is going to be your manager, who can approve a simple expansion of your current role, but it could also be people and groups who need to believe in the possibilities of the new role you want to shape. So you need to think about who the decision makers are that would approve any change in role or any change in job or any creation of new role or project or opportunity. And think about what strategies you can use to raise your profile and visibility with these key decision makers so that you can demonstrate your credibility to them and influence them in the way that you want to. You also need to just broadly raise your profile in your organisation. So far we've been talking about some quite targeted strategies. We've been thinking about how you can develop your picture of future success and how you can make it happen by targeting those decision makers and influencing them that can help you. But actually, it's also about attracting opportunities to you and being known for the thing that's important to you. So it's about being seen as an authority and establishing yourself as an expert in the field that you want to become known in. So you really need to learn the art of self-marketing and develop your personal brand. And by personal brand, what I mean by that is actually when somebody thinks of you, when somebody says your name, what are the kind of things that they think of? You know, what kind do they say? Oh yes, that's the person that's really good at X, or that's the person with a passion for this particular field, or that's a person who excelled in this achievement. You know, what do you want to be known for? And there's three key things that you need to think about. When people think of you, you want your personal brand to communicate what you do well, how you make a difference to your function or organisation, and the kinds of challenges and projects that you'd be well placed to take on. And of course, you want those things to align with your aspirations. And you need to think about what opportunities you can take to raise your profile in your organisation and become known for those things, making the best and most visible impact you can. Now, this will require some homework in your organisation as well, but typical examples of opportunities are public speaking. So maybe there's the opportunity to present at a conference, maybe there's an opportunity to run training workshops in your area of expertise, maybe there's an opportunity to write. Maybe you can write articles for an internal newsletter. Maybe there's an internal knowledge exchange platform or some kind of social media that you can use to get your voice heard and get your thoughts known on a particular subject. It could be about volunteering for opportunities and projects. It's really about putting your hand up and getting whatever opportunities you can get for visibility beyond your usual audience. So not just your own department, not just your own function, maybe not just your own location, but actually raising your profile beyond your usual boundaries. You also need to find mentors and sponsors to support you. Progress in your career will need the help, support and encouragement of others. And mentors can be an invaluable source of objective advice. They can give you the benefit of their experience in terms of how they've managed their career to date. They can also give you the benefit of their contacts. They typically will have a much wider reach than you, so they'll be able to act as sponsors and champion you to others in the organisation. They'll also be able to help you do that homework that we talked about earlier. So if you're keen to find out what it's like to work for a different function or to take on a different role or different opportunities, they will probably be able to put you in contact with others that will allow you to do that research and do that discovery. But that means that you need to really think about who those individuals are that would be best placed to assist you in some way. Think about your aspirations and what you're trying to achieve and the knowledge, skills and experience gaps that you have to fill, and think about who would be best placed to help you address that. Some organizations will have formal mentoring programs, but normally even in those you have the opportunity to identify the kinds of people that you would like to be matched with. More commonly, mentoring is an informal process, and it's really about identifying who could help you and approaching them to ask for advice and support. And people love being asked for advice and support. So actually, it's really just about having the courage to ask for the help you need and making the approaches. And finally, you need to think about how you build your network and develop your relationships. So again, as well as raising your profile, you want to extend your reach in your organization and in your industry. Even with the speed and ease of access and global reach of information that we have now with technology, people still make decisions based on personal experience and relationships. At the end of the day, we want to know, like, and trust the people we work with. So people will rely on their own experiences with a person and the recommendations of those they trust. So if you want to have new opportunities, you need to get to know those people that can help create those opportunities or who have those opportunities. And that means getting connected to people that you don't already know and expanding your network. So that covers broadly the 10 different strategies that you can use to accelerate your career. In a moment, we're going to go to questions. So if you have anything that you'd like to ask, I recommend that you start typing your questions in now so that Fiona can gather those together. But just thinking back and just reflecting and recapping on what we've covered so far, there are two broad areas you need to think about if you're going to take control of your career and accelerate it within an organization. Firstly, you need to focus on you and be very clear on who you are and what you want from a career. That means being clear on what's important to you in terms of your career, developing a picture of future success, focusing on the steps you can take in the short term, recognizing the progress you've already made in your career, and continually developing the knowledge, skills, and resources you need. Then you need to focus on the organization so that you can dovetail your aspirations with the objectives and goals of the business. And this means doing your homework into the kinds of opportunities that exist and the kind of opportunities you think you want, identifying the key people you need to influence in order to make that happen, raising your profile in your organization by making the best and most visible impact you can, and finding mentors and sponsors to support you, and building your network and developing relationships so that you extend your reach and your contacts beyond that of the people that you work immediately with. So, having covered all of that, I'm going to ask Fiona if we have any questions.
Okay, we haven't at the moment. So if you want to all start sending your questions through, that would be great. Just while we're waiting, just to let you know, we will actually put a recording of this webinar up on the WorkMaze website. Details of how to log in will actually provide at the end of the webinar, but you will actually be able to go on there and actually listen to the recording again and also view the slides, which is always quite useful just to help you recap. So that will be available. Normally, I manage to get it up by the end of the week, otherwise it'll be on the website by the beginning of next week. Okay, we've got a couple of questions come through now. Rob has asked, can you suggest any tools for self-evaluation that are easily available? Myers-Briggs, etc., are limited and expensive.
Yes, they are. Actually, there are a number of books that are very helpful, that are worth looking at. It's going to sound a little biased, and it is, but one book that I would recommend is called If Not Now, When? By Jane Barrett, who also works for WorkMaze. But I do recommend that, not just obviously because Jane is the director of WorkMaze, but because it is a very practical book, and it is full of self-assessment exercises to help you do that self-reflection, and very easy to access. So that's one book. In the interests of being objective and not being overly biased, other books that I would recommend are by John Lees, and he has a book called Take Control of Your Career, and he also has a number of other books about job search, but he specifically has one about Take Control of Your Career that isn't just about applying for jobs, it's about managing your career within organisations.
Okay, that's great. Actually, Antoinette, if you can provide me with details of those books, I'll actually supply those to the Open University so they can actually pass those on to everybody as well,
Perfect.
just in case they want to obviously get hold of those. Okay, another question from Anand is asking, how could you change a career in the IT field into a management field? Is there any ideas of how it would actually change a career?
I suppose, well, part of me is wondering whether you need to change field, because management exists in every industry and sector. So the most obvious thought in my head would be about management within an IT organisation or sector. So I'd probably need to understand a little bit more about the specific scenario to understand what the change is, whether it's a progression or whether it's about getting out of the IT field. But typically it would be about getting the opportunity and developing the skills and experience to manage others or manage projects. There tends to be a progression from somebody managing themselves, which we all do in any job we do, to managing others without a reporting line. So you might manage others on a project team, and then you might get given the responsibility to manage others and be responsible for their performance, which is more of a line management responsibility, before moving on to then manage a function and finally an organisation or the world.
Just sort of interrupt you just to help you with this actually. Anand's come back saying, I want to leave the IT field and go towards fields such as supply chain management and operations management.
Okay.
So if that helps you a little bit more.
Okay, yes, it does. The key things there would be about analysing the experience to date and identifying those things that would be transferable to those new fields. So there's a couple of things in that. One is about analysing and researching where you want to go. So in the supply chain field, what is the required knowledge, skills and experience, and then analysing the experience to date and the career to date and identifying those knowledge, skills and experience that do readily transfer even though they've been in a different field. And then looking at, well, what gaps need filling and how might you be able to fill those gaps, which might take a little bit of creativity and getting involved in certain projects or such like, or retraining if that's necessary. But in a lot of cases, there's a lot that can be transferred without having to go back to school, as it were. I mean, my own career started in researching and developing washing powders for P&G, and I moved from there to manage a training function for a franchise organisation before joining the HR team of Accenture. And at no point did I go back to university. So, a lot of it is about identifying those transferable skills.
Okay, moving on. We've got a question from Louise, who, by the way, says that it's been great, thank you. So it's a bit of feedback for you, Antoinette.
Thank you.
She's asked, do you have any recommendations for how to network in an industry? I don't have the luxury of being able to attend evening networking events, so I was wondering if you could suggest alternatives.
The most obvious one is LinkedIn. It's, especially if you can't get out to events. And to be honest, a lot of people are paralyzed with fear at the idea of networking events at any time of day. LinkedIn is incredibly valuable because it allows you to be much more targeted in who you want to connect with. So it depends on what your objective is for the networking. If you want to raise your profile within your industry, for example, then it might be about connecting to certain people who you could find and get introduced to through LinkedIn, or it might be about posting links to articles that you've published or displaying those on your LinkedIn profile, or it might be about responding to answers and discussions in groups. So, for example, I'm in the field of HR, so if I wanted to meet the chairman of the CIPD, I happen to know that he's connected to a good friend of mine on LinkedIn, so I could ask her to introduce me. I might contribute to the discussions on the CIPD group on LinkedIn, and I would have displayed on my profile HR publications that might be of interest to other people. So it depends on your objective. I think we had another webinar on using LinkedIn, didn't we?
I was about to say, actually, Louise, if you want to visit the WorkMaze website at some stage, we do actually have recordings of previous webinars that we've held. One of them was on LinkedIn, and another one was on networking. So it does be worth taking a look at both of those, because I think that will give you some useful tips on there, and go into a lot more detail. To be quite honest, that might be useful. Moving on, we've got a question. Let's have a look. They're coming through thick and fast. I've got one from Rosie. She was saying that she feels like she needs some more tailored help as she's hoping to work more for herself. She's trying to swap careers. Do you have any advice for her?
In terms of tailored help, then I think that's about working with a career coach, and I'm guessing that we would be able to provide some contacts in that area, Fiona, would we?
Yes, we can do, yes.
So,
if you want
yes.
to get in touch, we can actually provide some details on that if need be.
And
she has also sort of said, I don't know if this sort of helped a little bit, she sent through another one just saying, for her it's about retaining focus and motivation. Do you have sort of any advice on how to help to keep motivated?
Yes, that's an interesting one. And again, I think it's about working with somebody helps you have a certain amount of accountability. Personally, I think if you can work with someone to develop that picture of future success, that really helps galvanize action. Certainly, I'm working with a client who had the same challenge, and she found developing her picture of future success extremely helpful. But the other thing that she found helpful and might be worth thinking about is who else this affects. So in my client's example, it was her husband. She was made redundant a couple of years ago, and she felt it wasn't just about the impact on her, it was about the impact on him. And thinking about that has helped her think about the benefits of developing a focus and keeping motivated on taking the action she needs to take. But the other thing is about breaking it down. That kind of analogy I made of climbing the mountain, I think does paralyze us. And if you are swapping careers, it can seem like a very high mountain to climb. And so actually really breaking it down and focusing on that one next step and moving towards that and rewarding yourself and recognizing the progress towards that can keep you going.
Okay, next question we've got comes from Rob. Rob was asking whether you think activities outside of work, such as volunteering, are a useful way of gaining experience that's not readily available at work.
Yes. In very direct terms it can be. So, for example, someone I know used to work for IT, actually, interestingly, and wanted to move into environmental work, and he did volunteer work for BTCB, British Trust of Conservation Volunteers, and was able to move from P&G, as it was, to a job with the Wildlife Trust, I think it was, at the time. And he's now head of people and operations for that. So actually that was very directly applicable. But you can also have some more indirect type of work experience where it just allows you to get the opportunity of managing people maybe, or managing projects, or just demonstrating that you can work with a broad range of people. So I think it's about, as I said earlier, being clear on the knowledge, skills and experience that you want to develop, and then finding a range of opportunities that will allow you to develop that and selecting from those. And if the opportunities aren't available in your work, then absolutely find or create opportunities outside.
Okay. Still waiting for some more questions. We will be here till 7 o'clock, guys. So if you want to still keep sending your questions through. Antoinette, if you just do me a favour, will you just move on to the next slide for me?
Certainly.
Please. And just while we're... Oh, sorry, keep going. Good luck, everybody.
Well, we do wish you luck. Good luck,
absolutely. Just while we're waiting for any more questions to come through, just to let you know about our next webinar, which is going to be delivered by Barry Hobson. It's actually going to be on portfolio careers. So that's going to be on Tuesday, the 31st of July at 6 o'clock. And this webinar will actually go through what is a portfolio career, who it's suited to, how you would finance it, how would you actually begin to populate your portfolio, discovering your motivated skills, your values and your preferred work-life blend, and is it a genuine future work style. So you'll be able to actually go and access how to actually register this via the WorkMaze website. If I just ask Antoinette just to move on to the next slide, please. Brilliant. Okay, this is your login details for the WorkMaze website. If you want to take a note of that now, this is where you can actually access all sorts of material. You may already have visited it before, but you can access all sorts of material on there, including a section which has all the recordings of our previous webinars, and a recording of this webinar will actually be up on there probably either by Friday or the beginning of next week. And you can also register for future events on there, so please do go visit on there. And if you're interested in attending Barry's webinar, then you can actually register directly from there.
And there is information if you do need more tailored help and individual coaching. you can see the support that's available through the Career Farm website that's there at the bottom of the screen.
Yes, that might be a useful one for anyone such as Rosie, if you'd be interested. That was a useful website to visit, Rosie, for more tailored help. Still no more questions at the moment. As I said, we will be here till 7, so we've got a couple of more minutes. If any of you have got any last-minute ones, Antoinette and I will hold fire and stay here just in case we've got any last-minute ones. I don't know if you've got anything else that you want to just say, Antoinette, just while we're waiting.
I was going to say, is there anything else that you feel I ought to add?
I can think of at this stage. They've all gone very quiet. Oh, no, Rob's got no more questions. Just saying, very good session, thank you. And Rosie's also said thank you as well for a great session.
Thank you. I guess the only other thing to say is that if people have any questions after the event, then they've got contact details that they can get hold of.
Yes, either sort of obviously contact the Open University and they can provide you with information, which is probably your best route initially, and if they need to come back to us, they will do. So that's probably your first port of call. But I will actually get details of the books that Antoinette recommended, and I'll send those through to the Open University so they can email those out to you in case any of you want to go out and purchase those on this subject.
There is another resource which is less expensive than Myers-Briggs, is Career Anchors, which you can purchase from Amazon. It's a self-assessment that is psychometric-ish, based on Edgar Schein's work. That can be quite useful in terms of identifying drivers and such like. So that might be another one to add to the list.
Okay, I'll make a note of that, and obviously we can have that one on there as well, which will be quite useful for everybody. Well, I think if that's it from everybody, I'd just like to take this opportunity to obviously thank you all for attending. Thank you to Antoinette, obviously, for a great presentation. I hope you all found it really useful and you got some useful tips out of it. Please do visit the website if you want to recap on any of the information that we've covered. But we look forward to seeing you at one of our future events. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.